Two Fargo students are seeing what it takes to be mayor for a day. Nathan Esgodum is going to 6th grade, Alex Zhao going into 4th grade. They got to hang out with Mayor Dr. Tim Mahoney today. They won an essay contest where they had to share what they would do if they were mayor. Their answers ranged from fixing infrastructure to helping the homeless. The essays were judged based on their content, their grammar, their originality. The two got to read their essays during tonight's City Commission meeting, which started about an hour ago.
Coming up next in sports, the recruiting trail stays busy for North Dakota State. Meet the two newest commits coming up next.